Okay, let's get started. Allison?
Okay, Bastian,
Here.
Knauer,
Here.
Tidings,
Here.
Burton,
Here.
Mersinger,
Here.
Sangster,
Here.
O'Connor,
Here.
Weissar.
Here.
Okay. Want me to run?
Yep.
All right. There are no minutes from the April 12th meeting yet. We're still working on those. Obviously, there's a lengthy meeting. We hope to have those to you for the May 10th meeting to get those approved and done with. So, just a recap from that meeting, though, obviously because it ran very long, the public hearing applications that were heard that night, there were a number of them. Two of them the board did act on, which were the requests for subdivision approval for single-family homes. Those were addressed that night. However, all other items, including both sketch plans and the 3 preliminary final applications, were all tabled unanimously, just to let the board have some soak time on the information that was discussed that night, the presentations from the applicants, the input from the public. So tonight we're here to pick up where we left off, as we would following a public hearing with a work session, to address what was said that night and discuss those matters. The first one then, with that being said, is the sketch plan application for the 250 Atlantic LLC sketch plan application. We, again, this is a sketch plan application for a large mixed-use development at the corner of Atlantic and 250. Doug, if you could pull up the plan, we'll start there. And I just want to do a brief recap for the record, for the public, what was proposed, and then open it up to the board's comments. Let's use the overall, if not supplemental. You got to go back a folder. Where are we?
Just do it back to the public hearing.
Okay, let's do that. Perfect, thank you. So the proposed development, we have about 75 acres on the west side of 250 that include all 3 development zones within the mixed-use district, Zone A, Zone B, Zone C. All of those involve different intensities of residential, commercial uses. Zone C would be that northern section at the right of the screen on Penfield Center Road. That's intended to be more of a buffer, a transitional area back to residential development on the other side of the road, or residential zoning district, I should say. On the east side of the road, there's another 25 acres of development, would be the last phase of the proposed project. Again, all this is concept review. That's part of the Zone B mixed-use district, again focusing more on diversity of options for residential housing. The applicant spent a great deal of time providing an overview for the public and the board of mixed use, how they believe they have tried to meet the intentions and requirements of the manual in the zoning district. Approximately there are 480 residential units proposed currently on the plan, and 468, I'm sorry, and with a various amount of commercial space, both in the Zone A and mixed in the village center, kind of along the main hub of the road that travels through the property. Some of the discussion that was captured during the public hearing, I think one of the biggest ones was access on Penfield Center Road, the proposed curb cut there. And then, just as well as concerns for the size of the development. Now, we know mixed use has been adopted as of November of 2017 by the town board. This zoning district is in place, and the ordinance has been updated to reflect that. That's why we are seeing applications like this now. So, unless the board has any direct questions from me, I'll open it up for your conversation based on what was heard 2 weeks ago at the public hearing. Just talk about overall layout, perhaps, how you feel the project offers, how it blends the uses of residential and commercial with one another. If there's any concerns about the layout or how you'd like to see something shifted, perhaps some of the proposed architectural samples that were shown. I know the applicant talked about updating their market study to reflect what the market's kind of moving towards in terms of what commercial uses might benefit and be appropriate for this type of development and this kind of density for dwelling units. Things of that nature. So unless if you want me to run through a list or open it up for your initial thoughts.
I think the biggest takeaway from the hearing was the fact that the applicant and the applicant's consultants worked very hard to get a plan in place that in fact met all of the criteria of the mixed-use development guidelines. And they told us both at the beginning and then at the end of their presentation that it was their intent to make this presentation at sketch plan level, to get feedback from the board and feedback from the public, and then to revise their sketch plan application based on the feedback that they got during the public hearing. So I think, given that statement that was made by, I believe, 3 of the applicant's consultants, it would be premature of us to talk about the blend and the density and those kinds of things, knowing that they're going to come back with some type of revision based on the comments that they got from the board and the comments that they got from the public.
They got PRC comments too that they
Yes.
did not respond to yet.
Yes,
I believe.
but they acknowledge that, and I think they recognize that this is the second mixed-use development sketch plan that the town has ever received, and it's very new to us. It's very new to them. They're trying to balance their project, and we're trying to balance their proposal with public comments and our own local law. I think it's premature to talk about the density and the mix of uses and the location of curb cuts and things like that until we see how they've revised the plan based on the feedback that they got.
But we haven't provided any feedback yet.
That's what I was going to follow up with. Typically, we got to formulate some sort of sketch letter as a result of that meeting, even if it is high-level comments right now. Again, to your point, and this is, I personally, I appreciate the effort of what the applicant offered to come back as a second sketch plan review to follow up on everything you just said, to give the board another chance, to give the public another chance to see this in an open meeting. But I think we still have to come up with some feedback summarizing what the board heard from the public as valid comments to address, so that they can come back with a revised application and something to respond to.
Did the town receive any comments post-hearing over the last 2 weeks? Emails, phone calls, anything like that from the public? We
had a couple emails with general questions, some supportive, some with some concerns. Some of the supportive ones were just kind of offering input as to maybe they could consider, alternative energy options such as car charging stations, solar, like things that, again, those are kind of more finer details at this level right now. They had questions about traffic, they had questions about utilities, more Q&A for staff than the board, and these are responses that I provided, and we included them, the dialogue here in your drop. We had a couple other comments in there as well.
To your point, I don't think it's incumbent upon the board to comment on how we perceive the opinions of the public. I think it's incumbent upon the applicant.
Well, no, I understand.
To vet how the public felt about the project and decide, how they might want to revise their application and their density and the location of different features accordingly. And then we have something that we can discuss further.
But during the course of the hearing, some of the common themes were it's too dense, too many people. Traffic's, they're connected. Traffic's going to be, it's going to impact traffic on Penfield Center Road, Atlantic, 250. Those roads, especially 250, there's already issues. A couple people focused in on it's all rental. Maybe it should be a mix of rental and homeowners instead of all rental.
Or perhaps have a sample of what price points they're looking at for those rentals to
Yeah.
get an idea of what they're offering.
Yeah. And as the town staff recognized, Zone A has some issues with the commercial layout. So, but that's putting the cart in front of the horse right now with what we want to do. So, I don't know, Terry, Bob, what do you guys?
Have we received any elevations on the architecture?
We have samples of architecture that they displayed at the meeting. We can pop them up on the screen now.
Yes, I missed that.
You public hearing. You should have some renderings in there.
Okay. Let's go through some of it.
So this example is for that kind of community center, village center along the main road that travels through the site, where they would have like their community building and where they identified on the plan the vertical mix buildings that surround it, all of which are adjacent to the 5-acre open space park area that they're proposing as well. Yep, Doug, they gave us a supplemental drawing to kind of revise that area from the big drawing we had up earlier, and shift things around so we see the community center with the pools as part of that park space now, and then where they propose to put vertical mixed use with office retail on the first floor, apartments on the second. Here at the middle of the image here, so that's kind of the layout. Doug, there was one. There's another one. Example renderings.
Commercial building.
Okay.
Yep.
They
So.
were examples there.
Yeah.
Yep, these are examples. Some of these came from the manual. Some of these have come from outside sources. Obviously, these are the themes they're looking to go with for the project. It's a good question.
I know there was some community pushback on the number of stories for some of the structures.
And those are allowed to be up to 4 stories in there under the manual.
And I guess, in the renditions, the architecture as the multi-use district guidelines call out, we're trying to capture the history, the architecture, the fact that it's grew up kind of as a agricultural community. In some way, there's some interpretation or representation of that in the architecture.
But again, it's a sketch plan application.
Right.
So,
But I
really
think
looking at that level of detail, they haven't submitted anything that's representative of what they intend to build. They're just giving some ideas of scope and architectural design. So,
It's a
So
conceptual
maybe,
review.
so maybe just reiterating that point in a sketch letter, besides some of the other things, kind of point them to that kind of thinking.
But they haven't responded to the PRC, they haven't responded to any of the
Well,
public
and
comments.
typically, this is a unique application. Typically, we don't see responses to PRC. The PRC memo is guidance for the board through that public hearing. That's when it's provided, and it's referenced for the applicant to know what the board's been provided from staff's, very initial review of this. A lot of them were. I know I had 25 comments of my own, and a lot of them were from the planning side of things for both the board to see and for the applicant to see as well. Again, typically we don't see those responses at this time, but it would be, to your point, Jim, something that would have to be addressed as part of that revised concept sketch plan application that we would be expecting at a later meeting
Yeah,
date.
and it's not anything that we requested of them. It's something that they offered to us in much the same way that the other mixed-use development came to us, admittedly with a very rudimentary idea of what they wanted to build and the massing of the site, and suggesting that they would continue to morph that design as they progressed and got more feedback from interested parties. So I think this is indicative of that same kind of flow here.
Yeah, similar in that nature. The board did give them the direction to proceed to preliminary final. For that, it was a smaller project, obviously. This, as you said, we're looking at kind of doing like a part 2 sketch plan hearing again, to give them the opportunity to present it to the board and the public about how they've addressed, to your point earlier, the comments and concerns of both the board and the public, and try to display those there at that time.
So you're thinking you'd like to see them come back with a revised concept review that addresses public concerns and PRC concerns?
I think that's what we heard that they intended to do. So we didn't really intend tonight to be advancing the sketch plan application as much as closing out our business from 2 weeks ago for the public record, and just putting on record that they testified that they would revise their plan based on feedback that they got, and simply stating in our tabling memo that we're awaiting that revised plan.
Are there any high-level
That's what I was just gonna
issues
ask.
that merit discussion now, or would prefer to defer?
Or is there something that sticks out to you that you really want them to focus on
No.
leading into that?
I think there were some very poignant comments from the public. I think there were some other comments from the public that were consistent with people that have really come to love green space in a community and hate to see that go. I'm really, particularly because this is new to everybody here, I'm really more interested in seeing not how we're reacting to it, but how they're going to react to it, and how much of that takeaway that they took from the public comments, and how they plan to incorporate that into their next iteration. So I'd like to make a motion that we prepare the memo along those lines, and that we reserve any tangible feedback about the application, the density, and the height, and the architecture, and the curb cuts, and all of those things, pending our review of the next iteration.
How does the rest of the board feel?
I agree.
Well, you know what the public doesn't like about this.
Yes.
They were very vocal on that variance.
Size.
What did they like? I mean, I can think of one thing I like. I like the 5-acre park, or whatever you want to call it there. The open space. To me, that's a plus. But again, it's a sketch plan, so that may or may not be there the next iteration. But I agree with Jim, we can't comment too much on this, because it was their position that they would come back.
Well, yeah, if that's in fact what they said, then that's...
So we need a second.
I second it.
Is there any, I just have a question, is there any residential proposed in Zone A, or is that all commercial?
Part of the discussion during the public hearing was that they would review how to incorporate a vertical mixed-use element into those buildings. They would be designed from the start to have a two-level function to them, not to be a single-story horizontal use. They'd be designed to accommodate vertical mixed use. So that opportunity is there. It's something to that I think should be noted as part of their update and revised plans is addressing the Zone A area and displaying more of a mix of uses there. That's just one of those comments that came out of there. It's certainly one of the comments in the PRC memo as well.
I
Yes.
had one question, I think it got brought up in the meeting. Does Webster, are they advised of this since it's in Webster School District?
Yes, I've advised the school district. They've been aware of this. They were also made aware they were listed as an involved agency, or an interested agency, excuse me, during the seeker review of the mixed-use rezoning. So they've been informed of both the rezoning of the whole district as well as this project.
And there are a few single-family dwellings.
Yes, they're dispersed.
Yeah.
Dispersed throughout. Certainly, there's a greater number of them towards the Zone C area at the
Right.
north end of the site. You can see that they're labeled
Oh,
with
yeah.
the one
Okay.
on the properties. We have a couple. I see two on the east side there. There's certainly more down on the Kraft property across the street.
Do we know if
Never
those
mind, I
would be
take that
sold
back.
or rentals?
Also, those would also be rental.
Those, okay. All rentals.
Yep. And that is how they would operate the community. All right. So hearing that from the board, we can prepare a brief memo. Yep. I just want what we're tabling and taking a vote on is a memo back to the applicant to prepare a revised sketch plan application that incorporates or at least responds to / addresses comments of the board and the public from the public hearing on April 12th, as well as the PRC memo with responses to that, and to prepare a sketch plan application for the next available meeting, and for the board to hear it then, and at that time come back with the board could then address some of these comments that we started talking about this evening and at the more technical level of the concept plan, and offer a sketch plan response letter following that meeting, is what I'm hearing. Okay, we will do that.
Okay, and that was moved by Burton, seconded by Tidings. Bastian?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Canower?
Aye.
Tidings?
Aye.
Okay. Moving on to our next application.
Excuse me, gentlemen, but no speakers or nothing, people don't know what's going on.
So,
I
tonight's,
don't read the lips, I want to hear what's going on.
tonight's meeting, I'm sorry if we didn't speak up enough. Tonight's
Of course, you gotta have some speaker, I got trouble hearing. You might as well stay home, I might as well stay out of it.
I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm not being too sorry, you know.
Yeah, tonight's meeting was just a work session.
Nonetheless, we have the people sitting over here, they like to hear what's going on. I imagine.
Yes, I hope everyone heard it. I'm sorry if you didn't
Yeah,
catch all of it. We don't turn on those speakers.
Yeah, you know, it's not everybody who's got a good hearing.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah, I could sheriff, I could hear what's going on.
Okay. If you'd like, just like the last meeting, if there's questions that you have, I'd be happy to talk with you after the meeting. about
Yes,
it.
but I'd like to understand what people are saying. I can't read the lips.
Understandable. We'll make sure we're.
That's my problem, like, it's hard to hear. But it's a remedy for this, is the speakers and adjust the volume and all that.
Yeah, again, the speakers aren't turned on right now. All these microphones are for is for the video to be captured and for the TV side.
Yeah, I am here for this section about Penfield Center Road.
Yes, and we just concluded our conversation about that.
That
See,
started at
I was here,
6:30.
I didn't hear a word that was going on.
Yep, we started at 6:30 and
That was 7 o'clock, wasn't it?
No, 6:30.
today is 6:30. 2 weeks ago was 7 o'clock.
Never was told it was 6:30, 7 o'clock.
That's how
So
the work,
because I got-
all meetings actually start at 6:30. The board meets for a work session.
Yeah, I got it.
The 7 o'clock portion you saw 2 weeks ago
Yeah,
was for a public hearing.
if you gentlemen don't mind, I got a couple questions about Penfield Center.
We can't do that tonight.
When you gonna do it?
Right now, the board can only accept public questions through a letter,
The same as
To me.
same as the first meeting.
not like the first meeting.
The first meeting, I want to ask questions,
Yes,
and I think you're the one that told me stop in my office.
I did. I'm upstairs.
Yeah, I know where you are.
Yep.
But I couldn't, I didn't have the time to stop.
I'm sorry.
So sorry about that.
That's okay, that's okay. I'm still there.
Yeah.
I'm still there. So I would invite you to come talk to me about those questions, because the board can't accept questions from the public tonight. This is for a work session and they're discussing. So if you come meet with me next week, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
I sure will, yeah, because I want to know what the second meeting is about compared to the first one.
Sure.
I'll see you in the middle of the week then.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Zach.
Monday and Tuesday. It's my problem, it's not your problem, I got to hear and hard
Oh,
to
that's
hear.
fine, that's fine.
That's my problem, but this is things that could be done about it.
Okay.
Okay, I'll see you next week.
Moving on to our second application, it's for Wickham Farms on Sweets Corners and Dublin Road. Just want to give the board a little background that I also try to convey at the public hearing based on some of the questions. This project involves three properties in total. Two of the three properties are part of the Wilms Conservation Easement, which the board recently heard for a different application. That easement encumbers a number of properties. It includes two here. The project also includes a parcel within the mixed-use district as well in the Zone B. So before it came to this board, the applicant had to meet with the town board discussing the uses proposed for the easement properties. That happened back in December and January, and subsequently a letter was issued by the town board, which stated that none of the proposed uses within the easement violated the terms of the easement, or how I should say, the proposed uses are all compliant with what the easement allows in terms of agricultural uses on the property. Again, they're proposing basically a farm market operation here to relocate Wickham Farms from 250 to their property on Sweets Corners. The mixed-use component of this to the west, which is at the bottom of the screen here, that includes two existing rental properties, one in a single-family home, one as a rental unit above one of the other structures on the site. They're proposing like the mini golf activities from Wickham Farms. They're including the jumping pillow, a mini train track, perhaps a larger mini train ride, a couple food stands. The property would be serviced by sanitary sewers that they would have to install. All of that is proposed, as they stated in their presentation, to offer a transition from mixed use, which is taking place immediately to the west at a much higher density for applications that we expect to receive at some point down the road, and they've decided to take the approach to use this area as a buffer and a transition to go back to the RA2 district that the properties to the east are zoned. We feel, staff certainly feels it's an appropriate use for the property. Again, the town board has reviewed in a work session the proposed uses that are within the easement area, which would go within a farmstead. Just like the other application we heard, this board would, as part of a future application for a formal application for site plan review, it would require the review of the farmstead area as outlined in the red here, as well as the uses proposed within it. That information would be provided back to the town board, who would ultimately have to agree to the farmstead area as well. So we've been through this process before. This would involve the same thing. It just has a couple other components with it. It is in for sketch plan right now. They kind of went through their business plans and how they plan to operate, the need for the 175 gravel parking spaces as part of the CSA program and the U-Pick operations, as well as providing some overflow parking across the street. They've been in touch with their neighbors on several occasions about what they're planning, proposing a number of different methods for buffering around the property, so that those residences around and adjacent to it would be minimally impacted by any noise or visuals, what have you. Open it up for conversation and the board's thoughts.
You had mentioned 3 properties, so there's the open space property, which includes the farmstead.
Correct. It involves what Doug just highlighted there on the map, that green outline. They have a portion of the farm which is only proposed to be used as part of like the corn maze or growing fields, is the property to the south there off of Dublin, and then the one Doug just highlighted, which has the Sweets Corners address.
And the second one to the west of that,
That is mixed use.
that's within the mixed-use district.
Correct.
And then you had mentioned there's a third parcel?
The third
Oh, is it the end?
is down on Dublin. It's
Okay.
one of the 2 included within the open space easement. So these are,
There's-
it's not shown on here as a property
so
line,
there's
which is
2
confusing.
open space properties.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Correct. Primarily, all of the improvements that are proposed within the easement are on the property having the address of 1315 Sweets Corners, the northern property there.
Okay.
Zach, I've got 2 questions about the farmstead area. The first one is wondering if the applicants understand the significance of the farmstead area and the importance of creating a farmstead area now that we would then, assuming the board agrees, that we would recommend that the town board approve. The second one is whether or not the farmstead area boundary should be pulled back to that buffer line.
I mean,
That's
so
a fair
moved in a little
question.
bit, not, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the rights that they gain for use within the farmstead area could potentially impact. The business grows, the business gets sold, you know, you just never know. I'm just wondering out loud whether or not pulling that back to the outline of the buffer wouldn't make more sense at this time because of the finality of what that means to the application.
Could that be done?
Sure. There's a
It's
sketch
up to
plan
us.
right now.
In the Oak and Apple application, recall, they had a 5-acre farmstead and we shrunk it down.
Yeah, we reduced it.
This, I mean, that right now, I think I did the math somewhere. The proposed farmstead, and I just drew this out quickly by hand. It wasn't on the map, so it's roughly 12 acres in its size, which is kind of proportional to what a farm market would entail. But I think that's a very fair comment to keep the buffer out of it and, you know, make an effort to condense the farmstead area a little bit. I think that's something we can certainly include in the sketch letter.
What's the benefit to
It limits the use of the area so that it is maintained as a buffer more.
that? Well, I mean, making the farmstead area smaller is what you're talking about.
Yes, pulling it back the 100 feet.
It's not so much smaller per se as it is, there's a buffer there now. So the people that live in the residential subdivision understand that they have that, you know, ag buffer, and it would be, you know, nice to continue to maintain that. Just a thought. I'm not necessarily interested in shrinking it per se as much as I am just,
Respecting the buffer.
yeah.
It's a fair comment. How's the rest of the board feel about that?
I don't have a problem with that.
Other than that, I think these people have been really good stewards of the town of Penfield, and provide services and ambiance that are very much in keeping with the history of the town.
Do we know where, because I think some of the current uses, I assume there's some minimal livestock kept on the property
Proposed.
proposed. I guess the question would be where the livestock would be housed. If
Earlier,
it would be in the existing barns or elsewhere.
earlier renditions provided it within the farmstead area for new kind of small stables for
If I recall,
any of the animals.
he has one existing structure that he intended to reuse potentially for that purpose and a portion of the new barn.
If you'd like, we can ask for clarification tonight. Would you okay with that?
Yeah.
Bill, you want to come up to the table?
There's certain code restrictions too on how far everything has to be from house livestock.
So I
100
know
feet.
I know we talked about it in earlier renditions, and
Yes.
I know you're still working out a lot of the finer details. This
Yes.
is sketch still. If you envision, you showed it on part of your presentation too, having livestock and
Right.
some of the smaller animals there. Where would you envision having them and
More
storing?
envision today,
stabling them?
more or less to the, as you look at that picture, to the right of that angled building. So a little bit to the right of the demo area and then down, yeah.
Right there.
Right around in there. We're still working through some of the details on that. And there'd probably be, we only have livestock during season.
Season.
Yes.
What kind of livestock?
Goats, chickens,
Goats, chickens.
bunnies right now, it can vary a little bit.
Short-term.
Yeah,
Easy
yeah,
Short-term
yeah.
residents.
No, I mean, we have to think about, public love animals, but I have to think about, great to have a...
They're vagrants.
Yeah, yeah. I always have to think about what could happen. Although some people might want to have a 3,000-pound cow, me not so much.
Yeah, you don't want to control that thing.
You're right. Right.
Any other questions for Bill while he's up there for any points of clarification?
Oh, well said.
So I'm hearing general support for the project, obviously.
Can you go around the table? Bob?
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good.
So we're all in support of this. Okay.
Good. Okay, thank you, Bill.
Thanks, guys.
So, that being said, we can prepare a sketch letter to be sent to the applicant with direction to review the farmstead area with the recommendation to slightly modify it to, I'm going to use the word respect the buffer that's there now and maintain it. Yep. And provide any details about livestock and locations on the site where it would be such that those structures are compliant with the RA with the town's code for livestock.
I think for the purposes of conversation, the applicant would want to kind of button down the improvements in the uses before we entertain a preliminary finding.
Is that something you'd like to just include in the letter with
I think so.
refine that as part of your future application? Okay.
Because they're going to want to also make sure that it's all still going to be compliant with the easement.
Yep.
I would suggest they consider, I don't know, the extent of the farmstead area and where it really needs to be. Did the town board weigh in on the farmstead at all? On where it was or how big it was when they looked at it, or just?
It was on the concept plan when it was shown. We saw a slightly different plan than this. They didn't have any objections to the farmstead area
Okay.
and said that obviously that's something that the planning board needs to weigh in on first before we make anything definitive about our final opinion on it.
Because ultimately they're
Right.
going to be the ones that
Exactly.
sign off on that. All right.
So do we have a motion?
Yeah. Take a motion.
I'll make a motion to send the letter.
Second.
Okay, moved by Bastian, seconded by Burton. Okay, Bastian,
Aye.
Burton,
Aye.
Knauer,
Aye.
Tidings.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so we have the first of our preliminary final applications. This is for 2316 Fairport 9 Mile Point Road for Pelletier Johnson Law Office. This is a redevelopment of a site within the BNR zoning district. It was formerly used as a single-family residence. That residence has since been demolished. The site is vacant now. The board saw this as a sketch plan application a number of months ago, and since then, as they stated in the public hearing, several elements of the building have been reduced in size from its original proposal, bringing the setback, improving the front setback, shrinking the footprint of the building, getting closer to the number of parking required by code. They are still short by a few spaces. They've gone on to the zoning board last week for their public hearing with them. We have received a letter from the Zoning Board of Appeals with some comments, mainly the comment from one of the board members, which was captured in the letter. They just had a concern for the proximity of the building to the adjacent property to the south and the proposed setback of 10 feet at the nearest corner. The zoning district requires 20. They're proposing 10. However, the applicant did provide us with the survey map from the property originally when the house was on it. Granted, that was a single-family use. It did show that the house was about 12 feet off the property line at that time when it was formerly there. Again, different uses. Just wanted to put that on the record for the board. Part of this, from staff's discussion with the applicant, would be it's proposed as a 3-story building. It has grade changes that basically offer a ground level entrance. Thank you, Doug. Ground level entrance to the building from the parking lot at the rear of the building. As proposed, this area would only be used as an entranceway to get to the top floor and the middle floor for the applicant's proposed business and future tenants on the middle floor. So the applicant's proposing to use all the top floor. The middle space is still being determined whether or not that will be 1 or 2 tenants in that space. And as such, basically, something the board discussed was having a condition of approval, having a condition in a potential approval, I should say, where the ground level space could not be occupied until such time that parking would be available as part of a shared parking environment, which is envisioned to be created here as part of the BNR rezoning.
Actually, I think what we...
Or I may have misspoken, I'm sorry.
What we said was that we asked them to agree that the lower level would be unoccupied space until such time that they come back to the board, which may be when they have cross-access easement and some additional parking and what have you. And now they're asking for some limited use in that lower level for conference space for the law office.
That was going to be my part 2 to that. Thank you for correcting. And I think if we had the work session last meeting, I was going to offer that add-on to your condition about not occupying it until 1, the board approval, and 2, because of shared parking now being available.
So before you go too far beyond the parking, my understanding is that before they came into the zoning board, they were requesting a big variance for the parking. But Andy Sevegas did a computation of the, based on his interpretation of the state code and what parking requires, and it turns out that they needed only, I think, 2 space variance instead of the much larger variance. So I don't know if that was before this board at the time or if that factors into that.
I did mention it during the public hearing for the applicant's information during their presentation as they stated what their variances were. Like you said, it was 38.
Okay.
38 was originally thought to be required. I said based on Andy's
Okay, so
discussion.
so you had that before. Okay,
Yep.
I wasn't sure.
Same thing with the building height as well.
So all he's doing is using the code to compute occupant load. So What that doesn't speak to, though, is visitors to the various businesses. So, to the extent that a conference room doesn't, it might be occupied space, but it doesn't typically contribute to additional occupants. It's the same occupants of the building that are reconvening to a conference room. And if they wanted to show us a design for a conference space that could be used by them or any tenants in the building, I don't see that as really contributing to more traffic congestion. I don't see that as a problem. I was more concerned that, we've seen this before, where you have these very large lower levels, and they say, mechanical space, and it tends to be a great temptation to use that for some commercial purpose, and with the bottlenecking that we have on 250, that could be a problem. So that was the purpose for that.
So, and thank you for bringing that up. We do have a floor plan that they submitted that shows where that conference room layout could be. Again, Andy Sevegas with the building and zoning department. He has been our go-to guy for determining proper number of parking of what the code would require based on the use. Is that something you'd like us to look into? Whether or not it's necessary to restrict part of the middle level in terms of finishing space in the building?
I don't think that's very practical, Zach.
In which way? I'm sorry.
Tying their hands with a portion of an occupied floor level above grade. I don't know that that's very practical.
That's where I was kind of going with that, was everyone's opinion.
This is their idea of a conference space. That's a lot of conference space.
That is what was submitted. Again, their team is here this evening if you have a point to clarify. This is conversations that we started just before the zoning board's meeting with the applicant. So a lot of it's still fresh, but we wanted to present all the cards on the table for the board.
And that's the entire lower level, and is that to the left, would that be equipment mechanical space?
Yeah, that's what it says, storage and
So it's just
mechanical.
showing you two images where, that was the original proposal for basically not developing, only using the first floor for an entranceway. On the right was the alternate floor plan, I'll call it, that offers an additional roughly 1,800 square feet of conference space with the mechanical and storage to the rear.
I guess my initial hunch is that plan seems inconsistent with the description that I read in your agenda.
Sorry if I didn't.
No.
If I cluttered it.
I'm not. No, I just, this to me doesn't look like a conference space. It looks like a very real potential for a reception area, a waiting area, and for future offices.
Well, that's what it looks like. It's a lobby, receptionist area right there.
So I'm not sure that that's consistent with what I understood to be permission to use, and it kind of shreds my other argument that a conference space in a building doesn't necessarily contribute to a bigger occupant load, but this certainly has the potential. And let's face it, what we're talking about is bottlenecking on a very busy street with a lot of residential and multifamily across the way, and a rise in the roadway. I'm not sure that I'm in favor of that on the lower level. What do you guys think?
Well, it looks like office space to me. They put some conference tables in there, but it looks like office space.
Yeah, that was my thoughts too when I saw that floor plan.
Would you, the applicants in the audience, if you want to get some clarification about that, I think they have a brief comment possibly.
Well,
It's up to the board.
you know, my gut hunch here is that I would ask my fellow board members if they agree that we'd like to see an alternate plan that would have a lesser density than what we're seeing here. This kind of negates, I think, what we thought we were getting when we last left off with this application. Which is not to say that they couldn't come back.
There's still a number of things that have to be addressed on the site plan
True.
too. I just kind of, maybe I jumped ahead a little bit with the layout, but I know parking was an issue from the get-go with this.
Parking and traffic are
Yep,
the kickers.
primary drivers here. There's other technical items that I want to address tonight too, once we've settled on what direction you'd like to take. Right now I'm hearing just, let's perhaps see a revised floor plan that's, again, like you said, less.
The lower level, yeah.
Can I just address one thing?
Bill?
I know this is not for
Bill?
public comment, but
No, hang on. If you're gonna speak, Bill, are you okay with it?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Tim, can you just come up?
I appreciate it. I know it's not really for public comment, but, and I appreciate your perspective. It's refreshing, and I appreciate the idea that you're saying it's not increasing the occupant load to move conference rooms downstairs to have some open space. I think the problem that you see here is you see all those chairs, and the architect is a little bit overzealous with the number of chairs that's there. And so it looks like I'm gonna house 100 people in the basement, and that's not the case. It's the idea of having the flexibility of having a big room if I need it, a more intimate room if I need it, but not.
Then ask him to do that. Ask him to create an alternate plan that has a big room. That's what we thought we were entertaining
Okay.
here. And I think you'll find that the board might receive that more favorably than what we're seeing.
I appreciate that, and I don't want this to portray something that it's not, which is 100 people in that basement at one time. That's not going to be the case. That's not my practice. And so that perhaps is a little bit misleading. But your first comment was, again, refreshing, because that is the intent. It's not going to change the occupant load. It's just where in the building the people are going to be.
Is that a receptionist desk?
It
The
is.
circular? Do you really need receptionists for the proposed use of this building? At
My-
that level?
Yeah, well, I have to have a reception area for my law office somewhere.
But it was upstairs.
It was upstairs. I would, initially, months ago, when I proposed a bigger building, is a different structure. So I moved it upstairs, trying to shrink the building, trying to make things work within the code requirements. If it's upstairs, then I have to figure out how people get upstairs, the use of the elevator and whatnot, and I could probably make that work. It's much better if they can come into the lower level. I have an elder law practice and estates practice. If people can come into the first level, not ride the elevator, not have to go upstairs, and have a receptionist and entryway right there. I would also contemplate using that as shared conference room space for the middle floor, perhaps. So again, I don't know that it changes the load of the building, but it's conference rooms available for everybody.
My hunch here, Bill, is that this dialogue is something that the public needs to chime in on.
I think so.
So this is a workshop, so.
I understand it, and I appreciate that. Your comment, Jim, about the using the 7,200 square feet or whatever it was, I talked to Zach about being flexible, and the 7,200 square feet is 7,200 square feet wherever it is. That, I think, was the reason why this change came up late.
Okay.
And I don't think that it would change relative to the public comment, but if you do, you do, so.
Right.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's not for us to say.
Right, fine, fair enough.
No, it was clarifying what your plan was here, and I appreciate you explaining that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks, I appreciate the time to do it.
So, to wrap this up, we'll ask for revised floor plans to be reflective of what was discussed here. Moving on to the site plan, they do have a couple things from the PRC memo they need to address. Stormwater is one of them. We have concerns about the amount of grading and disturbance that would take place immediately up to the creek that's in the back. Obviously, you heard a couple comments during the public hearing. Some people had concerns about flow of water backing up there. Obviously, we have code requirements for stormwater design. I think staff would just like to see this this grading plan and stormwater management designs tightened up a bit so that we're not just we're minimizing any impacts to the creek in the back of the property. The other thing we received since is a landscape memo from Bruce Zaretsky addressing some of our concerns about providing buffer to the parking area. That was one of the public comments that was also brought up about what could be seen from the neighbors to the back, which is a residential street. He provided those comments to the board. We forward those to the applicant as well. It's something that they have to respond to in addition to the PRC comments. Something you guys want to bring up before jumping into architecture?
No.
Okay. Any thoughts on the architecture? The first time through, board was supportive of the architecture and look at the building. It seemed like that at the public hearing. Yeah.
It's nice.
Okay. Is there anything else the board would like to discuss on this before tabling the matter pending the responses to comments?
I'm all set. I think we're ready to.
Since the zoning board offered their letter, is there any feedback you'd like to provide to the zoning board regarding the setback? That they, again, it was one board member had a concern for.
Well, we did too.
Yep.
And if they saw our comments, and we had previously sent this to the ZBA to ask them what they thought about the number of different variances that were necessary here. I don't know that that's changed. We were aware of the side setback on both sides. You know, I think it's much more important to increase, like we did, the green space on the driveway side of the property. Can't get two cars to pass over there, the site doesn't work.
Right. Right now it's at 20 feet wide. They would need a town waiver from the town's design specs because their code calls for a 24-foot wide commercial drive access, so they would have to just approach the town board in a work session for a waiver from our design specs. But to your point, you got to provide adequate access as well. Anything else on this tonight? Nope. You have a motion to the table?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay.
Bastian?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Canower?
Aye.
Tidings?
You don't have to recuse yourself. The board, just for everyone, the next application is a T.Y. Lynn application for Wilbert's. They reached out to me and asked the application, no action be taken tonight as they are still working on a couple things with respect to the application of what staff really requested before the public hearing.
Well, they have yet to make application to the ZBA.
That is correct, so
So
we wouldn't be
we'll
taking
take
any
no
action.
action, no need for tabling or anything.
Nope.
So you can stay.
You okay with it, Jen, or you want to
I know he wanted to recuse himself really bad.
He was ready to go.
Alright, where am I? Preliminary final application that was tabled from last meeting was Mary Wynn's project at, 2567 Browncroft Boulevard. This project involves a number of boards for the town. It started with the town board in a work session, went on to the Historic Preservation Board, is here with the Planning Board, and will eventually go back to the town board again, and for several reasons. The applicant initially approached the town board before purchasing the property to have a discussion about converting what is a two-family home there and using it as a 12-unit apartment building. Town board had that work session with them, had a couple meetings, ultimately showed support for it.
It's actually not, excuse me, it's actually not 12 dwelling units. These are sleeping units, correct?
The studios.
apartments.
These are co-ops. They don't all have a private kitchen, bathroom.
They do.
I think they do, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But that's not our
They're
call.
they're studio,
That's already been
they are
decided.
studio apartments.
So they're-
There's only, I think there's like a common living room. I haven't seen all the floor plans yet. That is something the Historic Preservation Board is reviewing as well as the town board.
The town board's already approved that?
They have not done a formal approval of it yet. It requires a special use permit, and part of the special use permit process is that the planning board reviews site plan before the town board holds a public hearing on the special use permit for the number of units within it. That's just the way our code writes it. It's odd, but here we are. So they went through the town board initially as a work session to have the idea. Part of that also involved working with the Historic Preservation Board to have this site locally listed as a historic landmark for the town of Penfield. That happened with the Historic Preservation Board. Then they began having discussions about the architecture and the layout, materials that would be used in the building, and also on the detached garages, which is this board's charge, is to review the site plan designs for the 12 garage units, the associated parking improvements, stormwater design, and landscaping around it. So that's what this board heard at the public hearing were those things. The plan has since been updated with the landscaping the board requested, as the applicant said they would be doing. So we now have a, where are you? We now have a grading and landscaping plan. You can just go to the landscaping plan. Shown on the right of the screen here. We now have a landscape berm at the south end of the property with a significant number of 25 arborvitae trees, and then a number of new plantings along the east side of the property where 9 of the garage units are proposed, as well leading into the stormwater management area at the front of the property. This was sent off to Bruce for his initial review. Obviously supportive of the designs, however, he did ask, he did suggest that additional plantings be installed on the eastern side of the property, and to exchange some species for other ones that were more shade tolerant and less susceptible to damage from deer. So we put the site engineer, the project engineer, and Bruce in contact with one another to sort that out as a technical item, as he would be required to sign off on the plans, as well as we normally do for site plans of this nature. Based on the public hearing, that was, I believe, the only comment that came out of it from the board, asking for revised plans too, along with responses to comments which we did receive. AJ made a comment that the lighting was appropriate for the site. The building materials of the structures are being reviewed by the Historic Preservation Board as part of that locally listed landmark designation and the requirement for that. So again, this really is basic site plan review for just structure, location, and the associated improvements. Open it up to discussion.
So the building materials are going to be dictated by the Preservation Board?
Correct, to be in kind and similar theme with the existing building.
Okay. So we have no say over that?
That is correct.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
We don't want to have say over that.
No. I'm just making,
Well, that's good to clear that up.
okay. So it's really just the new garage structure and then the addition?
The addition is for three garage
cars
units.
and
Yep,
new garage
totaling
for the
12.
9.
Yep.
And that's actually, there's a footprint of a garage already
Correct.
at that location.
Yep.
More like a shed, I guess, yeah.
So they rebuild and expand.
Yeah.
I'll turn that down.
So the
Mike, no
they-
variance issues with that?
No.
No.
Okay.
Everything complies with setbacks.
And to the east of the garage, that's a group home? Is that the?
It was formerly
Was.
used for
Mary
Mary Cariola,
I was gonna say Mary Cariola.
but now they're open. They've relocated up to State and
Road.
Jackson.
Right.
So is that property for sale? Or,
It's just purchased.
I believe it was purchased. We do not know by who or for what.
okay.
Interesting.
They've kept the buildings out of the sanitary sewer easement that runs through the property, which is a requirement for us. Otherwise, they would have had to approach the town board for that too. So, with the restrictions, with the constrictions of the site, everything's been located and planned to be compliant with code.
So we have a draft approval resolution on this?
Yes, a draft approval was provided along with a draft completed EAF, Part 2, Part 3 for this. If there aren't any questions or any other concerns from the board, you could act on both of those tonight with the EAF first.
Yeah, I'll move that we accept the EAF.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Bastian?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Knauer?
Aye.
Tidings?
Aye.
And I'll also move that we approve the approval resolution pending, I guess, the outcome of
Bruce's,
zoning?
Bruce's final input
Bruce's
on,
final input.
on final input, and there's a condition in there for obtaining the special use permit from the town board. And all necessary approvals and architecture consistent with the approvals of the Historic Preservation Board.
So 3 conditions.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Good. Preconditions are approved.
Okay.
Along with our typical
Yeah.
27.
Right.
But this is in addition to those.
Yeah. Second?
I'll second.
Burton?
Okay, Bastian?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Knauer?
Aye.
Tidings?
Aye.
Okay, we have one action item and one new business item. The action item is very brief. We're just revisiting 1661 Empire Boulevard, Sam Fantuzzo's project there. Previously, the board took a look at this as a modified site plan as we were working through the calculations for the lot coverage on the site. Let's just stick with that plan. I'm not.
Didn't know if you wanted to compare it against the old one.
Nah, let's just stick with this one. There's too many renditions. This plan is what was presented to the board in response to some of the site work that took place where they paved not the entire, but a large portion of the front of the property, which triggered the lot coverage issues. This plan proposes and would remove a portion of asphalt at the front of the property while maintaining the access around the building to Rossman Drive. When the board saw this plan in a work session, the board was supportive of the proposed modified site plan as seen on the screen here. They were directed to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals to obtain the necessary area variance for lot coverage. That has since been taken care of and was granted by the Zoning Board at their recent meeting. So tonight, just looking for basically a final vote from the board to accept this modified site plan,
Mike,
so they can start working.
completed site improvements out there?
What are they?
Well, they still need to remove the asphalt from the.
Yeah, I was watching it on the computer today, but I come to the meeting, it was long.
Right.
Oh, zoning?
Zoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had 12 things on their agenda, I think, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and then this one.
It was long.
Yeah. Nice job though, Peter. Nice. But yeah, I mean, they were still haggling over it when I.
Yeah, right now they have kind of like basically a, I think it's a temporary C of O, or
Right.
they have a, I believe it's a, no, I think they have a C of O for the building they renovated in the front for the offices. The parking's in place, but again, the asphalt that was installed has not been removed yet. It would be as part of this plan and part of the lot coverage, and they have not started the site work for the residential home that would be constructed at the rear of the property. So that stuff would take place following this approval.
So how many things do they have to do right now just to get to where they're supposed to be? I lost track.
Really,
The asphalt, to take
Since-
the fence down.
They took,
yep, yeah,
The fence is gone?
I think the fence is gone.
I didn't get over there today.
they
cut it
privacy-
back.
They cut it back from Rossman Drive right away.
Right.
To be compliant with code. They still have it kind of as a privacy barrier behind the existing building because that driveway across, and I really should have brought the laser pointer, the driveway across the property hasn't been installed yet. It's kind of just like a stone pad right now. So that privacy fence is in place, but we removed eventually where they show a lawn area at the front between the sign and the porch. That still has to be converted back to grass. That's asphalt right now. And then they obviously still have to build everything in the back of the property beyond the fence. So right now they're just using the house.
So why not just table it until everything's done?
Well, they need this plan to be approved to keep moving forward with it. This is just a modified site plan. This reflects what the zoning board approved for the lot coverage variance.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Sorry, that was seconded by Bastian?
Yeah.
Okay. Bastian?
Aye.
Burton?
Aye.
Canower?
Aye.
Tidings?
Right.
To your point, we'll be out there doing our normal inspections.
Right.
What? Again?
And then they'll be back again for some.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched there, what, the two different, the neighbors, and I see they moved the RGD pole.
I didn't know they moved an RGB.
Yeah,
Right.
it's quite interesting. If anybody gets to take a chance to take a look at it.
Will do.
Watch it. It's
All right.
interesting. Nice job, Peter.
I try to do a good job.
So my new business item is kind of a point of clarification / update from our meeting on the 22nd of March regarding the Heritage Christian Services Daycare. We received a letter earlier this week, which was updated in the drop for today, and Doug has it up on the screen here, these paragraphs. Regarding the proposed project, we contacted the school district, asked them for their input based on the latest set of plans we had, what they anticipate for bus service to the facility based on what the applicant has represented in their application in terms of the number of the kids the approximate number of kids that would need busing to their schools. In it, they discussed that any student that would be attending Scribner or Bay Trail there, they would have to be walked to the schools. They would not provide a bus there because they're within the half-mile distance. Any bus that comes to the site, which they say would be approximately 3, I believe, there in the first paragraph, a maximum of 3 buses in and out of the facility at varying times of the day. They would be routed accordingly to go to whatever school they need to or whatever stop they need to go to next, so that they would not have to make a left turn onto the Scribner to travel south or to travel west. They would direct all the buses to come in through the Atlantic curb cut that they're proposing to relocate further to the east on the site plan. And overall, yes, they know Scribner can get backed up at the school times, and they would address their routes in accordance with that. So we were glad to get this input from the school board as part of this kind of ongoing sketch discussion for the project. I want to provide this to the board tonight as an update. We provided it to the applicant as well. I did speak with the applicant earlier this week, and with another update for the board, that they are much closer in their decision making to modifying the site plan you saw, which had 2 buildings on it, and removing the existing structure because they discovered certain things in it with regards to the construction of the home that just would be cost prohibitive to maintaining it on the site. So they're leaning towards removing the structure and going back to a single facility on the site, pull it back from Scribner a little bit, and rework out some of the parking and the playground and the landscaping to try and bring back more of that enhanced landscaping on the site, because it would require a lot of the trees to be removed on there. So with those 2 things in mind, obviously the last time we talked, traffic was the #1 issue, and obviously a traffic study would be required as part of any future proposal or any formal application that would be submitted. I just wanted to clarify with the board what direction they wanted to give the applicant based on this information, because the applicant was a little unclear from the previous discussion as to whether or not the board would feel comfortable giving them the direction to prepare a traffic study with a formal application for site plan review. And if that's the way the board wants to go, we can give them that direction, or if a traffic study would be required prior to making that decision to bring them in for a formal site plan review. And I wanted to clarify that so they had some direction of whether or not they can, again, prepare everything, or if they need to prepare one item first. Typically we see the traffic study with a formal site plan application, even when traffic is a #1 concern, and let them hash that out and review it as the plans are developed, and let the board weigh in on that and the DOT weigh in on that as the application's reviewed. But just wanted to hear from the board based on those
It's up to them,
inputs.
Jack. I don't know, Peter, correct? I mean, it's up to them. I mean, we shouldn't have to tell them whether or not they want to proceed with anything.
Well, it's kind of like from sketch plan, where we have to say, we understand what you're asking for, we have concerns, but we never really gave, from my recollection of our meetings, whether we gave them clear direction to begin preparing, to make the decision to prepare a final application with all of that, and see if it works out.
I think we did.
Yeah, I think we did too.
I think we did, and it really kind of teetered on, whether or not they perceive that as the board asking for a TIS in advance of their application.
Mm-hmm.
And we, of course, would not be, making that kind of a request, but simply telling them that because of the high potential for traffic being an obstacle to this project, that they should consider having some form of traffic study that would lead their own consultant to determine whether or not this is a viable project, and also as we suggested, that staff reach out to the school board to get their feedback. So it looks like they've done half of that, and I mean, really, the TIS is going to speak for itself, right?
And we would expect it with that application anyways.
Yes. So
if they have one that supports it,
they want to continue to advance, planning and engineering for their project, and then get to the point where they order a TIS and that's reviewed by the town. That's up to them, or if they want to do that in advance to kind of draw their own conclusion.
And the urgency, and there is the urgency for it to be done in advance, because they want to do it while school's in session too.
Sure.
With the limited time that we have left in the school season.
Sure.
So I apologize for not hearing that correctly from the board earlier,
no,
but I just wanted to.
Well, I think it's up to them, but if I were them, if I were in their shoes, I'd prepare it now. You've got,
Because that could be the showstopper.
yeah, you've got less than 2 months.
Okay. So I can give them back that direction where
I mean, as you know, there's traffic impact information out there without performing a dedicated traffic impact study.
Yeah, you get counsel.
That could be used to kind of drive this. You know, we hate to be the ones that tell them what they, you know, what the board is willing to accept, but without the data, you know, it's,
Right, and they needed to prepare that application
eventually
anyways.
they would need to do that anyhow, so,
Yep.
you know.
Did they give you a time frame when they want to come back in for a preliminary final?
I would say as soon as the TIS is completed and they have their plans, they'd be in, I would imagine, late summer, early fall.
Because my take is if they wait to do the traffic study,
They gotta wait till the fall.
they're not going to come in for preliminary final if we're going to need that for preliminary final until fall,
Correct.
October, November.
Correct. So I just wanted to clarify and also give the board this update too, so it kind of served two purposes. But we'll reach out to them and give them the direction that they can, if they choose to if they pursue the TIS and they continue to pursue the preliminary final application and all the site plan drawings they need to do, they can submit an application for the board's review.
So, for what it's worth, just to get this on the record, in our world, this is a growing need in every community.
You talking daycare?
Talking daycare for public schools, and you know the applicant has a great reputation as being a good partner and a good steward in the areas where they have facilities. So if it's, you know, it's not a matter of is this, you know, going to be well utilized or well perceived. I think it's more a matter of does it create a hazard for commuters or,
yeah. I mean, that might not be the best location for that though.
Well, you know, it is in part because of what they said right here, that, you know, if they can provide chaperones, they can walk kids right to the school back and forth. That's a pretty neat thing. So let's wait and see.
Plus a lot of their business, as they gave us in their updates from the sketch plan when we talked about it at our March 22nd work session. Something that wasn't discussed in the public hearing but was provided after was that, I mean, I'll ballpark the number, about 75% of the students that they would have there are all not really, they're all preschool. They're not going to the schools that require bus traffic.
I think you're going to find that changes.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
You build a facility right near elementary schools, and then the parents that have kids in those schools start to see the benefit of
daycare. I'm a product of
that right there. So.
I was in daycare for 10 years. I know.
And you might want to take a look at their other sites too, that they already have these facilities too, for the board members.
I
see what kind of
I'm
impact they
familiar
have.
with
Yeah, and I've gone by the other ones myself, so.
They do a nice job.
I mean, it's gonna have a serious impact on that location, ones I've seen, so.
I'll give them that direction though. They have the concerns from the boards. They have to address them. And we'll see what they come back with. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Sorry for the confusion earlier though.
No, I think we might have given them a little direction that was clear as mud.
I wasn't gonna say it. With all that being said, I have no other business for the board this evening. And
Is that it?
that's it. We meet again on May 10th.
Session.
All right. Adjourned.
Aye. Good job.
Aye.